before I talked on again. So yeah, so just shifting gears here, in closing, thank you. It's such an honor and a privilege to be a part of this for all of you, and to hold each of you through this journey in a way that I wish I was held, that I was able to, point out the different things along the way I wish were pointed out to me, but also really grateful for kind of the stumbling and the, face plants that I've made along the way, the finding and losing, that I could discover these things in a way that I could recognize, like, oh, hey, wow, yeah, these are points and discoveries and understandings and insights that other people need too. Take care, Simon. And recognizing that we really are in this together. This really is a process of finding our way through the dark woods into the light, into finding our way home, into the safe place, into the back to the hearth where we can nourish ourselves, and it's all very much co-created. So for all of the gifts and the curses I received along the way from some of my experiences, or maybe curse isn't the best word, but all the gifts and challenges, all of the answers that were given to me sincerely, and all of the answers that were withheld or not able to be answered, have helped me to find a way to kind of solve for similar struggles on the path. Right. And so to be able to share this with each of you, and to have that point received, to have that reflected back to me, is really music to my ears. So thank you, each and every one of you, for your trust and for your sincerity and your willingness to really just lean in to an unknown process, and just use your best sense that I might have some extra clues to offer to help you along your way. I'm really, really grateful for that. As far as where to go from here, the process that you've experienced, the main intention for phase one is to learn how to access source and to sustain that access and wherever you go in the physical space, right? Where, to be able to access source here in your house, on a mountain, in the grocery store, at a concert, and to eventually begin to learn how to cultivate this connection, to sustain it in relationship to others. Right? This is where it starts to get a lot more difficult, particularly when those that were around are not really on the same wavelength. Right. So there is a limit as to how deep we can go in these 6 weeks. What I would encourage is to come back for source activation at some point. The intention here is that you don't need to come to another source activation ever again, which is true. If you're able to feel like you have that access. However, coming back to source activations can be helpful to fine tune your, the generator that you're building, and consider it to be like a jungle gym to engage some of the, the core practice or whatever else you've been cultivating, that, people who are just starting and that are there for the one-off activations, they're not going to have that training. They're not going to have that know-how, but the reflection I get from people is, for those that still come back at least every once in a while, that there's always, with these tools, you can go even deeper. And Shri you probably would agree. I mean, you've continued to come to these sessions, even though you've been on this process with me for well over a year, right? So that there's always a new plateau to overcome, and always a new depth to explore. But my encouragement here is just following your own lead. I'm not requesting it, but just letting you know what's available. If you do feel like you want to go deeper here, you may find in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you're in that shape of what the hell's going on? expect it. It might not happen, but you may find a moment of contraction where you're in that place of, also another great time to come back to the activations. This can help keep, you come back to that sacred circle, that sacred space, and that can help you continue to strengthen and identify with this new identity that you're cultivating. And considering it for that purpose of, it's not as though that you didn't get enough, or it's not as though it didn't work. It's just that we need, it's like you could go to the gym for 6 weeks and probably notice some effect. But if you never went back to the gym and you're like, oh yeah, I understand weightlifting. I understand how to do a bench press. I don't need to ever do that again. Those muscles, doesn't matter what the mind knows, the muscles will atrophy. The interesting thing though, with Kundalini is that light, once it's lit, as long as we can just honor it, will continue to burn. And so in other moments, other peak experiences in your life, other moments where there's a challenge or a test, it seems to fire where we really need it most. And so it's always there. It's always there. Whether or not you're practicing the muscles to access it, that's up to you. The intensity at which you experience it will diminish if you're not exercising it, but it will still be there. This is what I've been finding from the people who've done this training. The first one I did was in 2020. So let's see. So that said, there is also the greater arc. Go ahead, David.
Question about the activations.
Yeah.
Is that the recordings that we have from this class, or are there other activations you're offering?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Yeah. So you can go through all of the recordings. You can do the core practice and then there's a list of playlists that I have, all Spotify playlists. You can experiment with doing it on your own. Many people, like I've got Joe, who is finishing this training over recordings, and then Christine, who hasn't been to a single live session. They're all getting the benefit from the recordings. The recordings themselves, it doesn't make sense, but the recordings themselves have the transmission encoded in them. Part of that is Pavlovian, part of that is just conditioned response, but not all of it. There are some people who have only experienced this work over recording. Energy is still energy. That's right. And since you have this association, you will get something. I can't promise it's going to be the same. What I've noticed is that if I've done an activation, sometimes I listen to my own recordings to receive what's going on there. But I notice is the more that I do it, there's like diminishing returns. But yeah, great question. There is a lot there in the Mighty Networks for that, for sure. I'm not sure when, but it may be probably by the end of the summer. I'm going to be transitioning off Mighty Networks. So sometime around, I think I say that we'll close in a month, but Mighty Networks will be open at least until August, our group page. So you can feel free to get whatever you need to from there up until then. Let's see. So.
And sorry, just to interrupt, but
sure.
You mentioned that we can come back to the activations. So by coming back to the activations, do you mean that you're going to be offering activations every month or something?
Yeah. Okay, I got you now. Yeah. So the next activation will be online, will be June 22nd. Yeah. All right. Right around the solstice. Yeah. And then the other thing that I see here too is that, once you start to recognize, oh, hey, I can engage source in all these different places that I didn't think I could. It's kind of like the energy wants to go to all the places that it hasn't been invited. And so you may find some emotional sensitivities come up that just need to be addressed. If you find yourself stuck, if you find yourself in any moment where you're in that place and using the tools doesn't help you get out of it, please reach out. We could set up a one-on-one session, and there's what I would like to say is there's a remedy for every issue that I've mapped here in Source Embodiment Process. It's just that in level 1, we can only offer so many tools. So that's a good segue to phase 2, which is all about being able to experience source energy in our deepest emotional contractions, where we've experienced any sense of wounding, where we don't feel like we're welcome, or we don't feel like we can connect to source, where we want to believe that source is all around us, but there's also another belief that says like, yeah, right, or like the voice of doubt. We want to learn to bring that voice to the table. We make room for that voice at the table so that that voice can get fed source. And then there's the part of us that doesn't want source, that doesn't feel like, it's like, yeah, I'd like to feel like I can just check out and, eat a bunch of unhealthy food just because I want to, or you know what, I don't want to be spiritual all the time. I sometimes want to just be human. That's all well and good. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But there is a lot of energy, life force that we're unconsciously spending in the we're unconsciously spending by perpetuating our resistance to life, right? And the part of me that believes that life can only be so good, and if it's too good, then that means something bad's going to happen. Like, that's the part that we want to bring healing to with this energy. And any part of us that's saying, no, source, fuck you, I don't want you here, or just like no to life, right? That general resistance that we have to receive the goodness that's available, all of these unconscious patterns that we've learned to protect ourselves, all that energy is energy that we are wasting. That is our creative potential. And so phase 2 also helps to learn how to find source in our shadowiest, deepest, darkest parts. The parts that we think are unacceptable, source is there too. And so learning how to be able to go into those shadows and find God there as well. That's the other muscle that gets flexed. That's the other pathway that we cultivate. But all of this in phase 2, really what it's really about is learning how to integrate and synthesize these aspects of our shadow in service to our purpose. So who we're here to be and how we're here to serve, when that's fueled by source, like Arthur was saying, like, hey, I just let source take the lead and I was able to navigate these 2 intense issues. Like, how we bring that into our creative process, how we bring that into the work that we carry into the world, how we bring that into all of our relationships. When we're really clear on that pathway in ourselves and then can connect to source through that pathway, that's where we have like, I just imagine like, there's a, the space shuttle, it has these, has these different stages of fuel tanks that it uses to get where it needs to go and to break through the stratosphere. When we have these different pathways established, then our capacity to start to really influence the world around us and flex those muscles is just held and carried by grace. It's a lot easier to allow source to do what it needs to do through us. And so there's a beauty and a poetry in that. Shri just completed phase 2 last week. I'd be curious to hear from you. Like, do you feel like I described it well? I'd be curious to know if from how from your experience, if there's anything else that you would want to share, just in a sentence or 2 about what that offers. If not, you're
I'm not ready to talk about it yet.
still integrating. Sure, totally, that's fair. Yeah, and so there's two people. It was a smaller group. There was 7 or 6 people. 2 people had major shifts in their careers and financial stability and things like that coming into place when we're able to renegotiate with the belief systems of what's possible. That's everybody's experience is different, but I feel like there's it speaks to the more practical aspects of this work where it really intersects with our daily life. And so that's phase 2. And then phase 3, if you're interested, this is definitely, for those that really, or only, I would say only those that really feel the call, is the phase 3 is the facilitator training, which we'll be doing around February 2024. So if you want to offer this work, in the form that I do in these activations, or you want to learn how to channel this work into whatever your craft is. Even if you, I don't know, work in finance or are a musician, when we can learn how to expand these pathways into whatever our soul's purpose is here, then that craft becomes the source of activation for others. So if you're a healer, or you're, a musician or a dancer, or work in healthcare or whatever, that when we're in the alignment of our soul's purpose with this source connection fueling it, that's where this work really has the fullest impact. And that's really the greater vision that I'm going for with the community that I'm wanting to build, is that we can all come with whatever our gifts are and let them shine through whatever our own genius is. Because source embodiment process for me became possible when I could disconnect from my teacher's channel to source and find my own. And it's through this that source embodiment process is born. So what my curiosity is for each of you is, and this is what we get in phase 2, is when you know what your own pathway is to source, right? The quality of the energy becomes much more uniquely you than it is something you're getting from Justin, right? I'm a middleman, right? Phase 2 helps you cut the middleman. And that's really what I feel is distinctive about this program compared to other trainings. A lot of teachers will say, this is the way, and if you change it, then goodbye. Just don't change it, and there is some wisdom to that, in the sense that we can easily distort what's coming through if our ego isn't fully in check. But with these pathways that we go through in phase 2, there is that clear sense of, oh, hey, yeah, this just feels natural in my system. And it's in that place that our gifts have an organic way of finding their way to the world. So thanks so much for taking the time to listen to all this and hanging on a little longer. I am here for next 5 minutes if anybody has any questions. Shree's asking, can we have a short group practice in a few weeks from now? If you want to lead it, I would definitely give you the challenge to rise to the occasion. It's a great question. Last year, we did this where I had somebody else who had been through the program once before, gather a group together, and everyone just does the core practice together. A week from now, my weekend is booked. But if you're up for it, Shree, let's definitely have a conversation about it. Yeah. And last but not least, thanks for bringing that in. Last but not least, those that have continued to do the practice with their pods, even after the trainings are over, I just see really beautiful things coming out of that. So whether or not your pod mate can fit it in, use the Mighty Network. I'm pretty sure the email list went out I'm pretty sure I sent an email out when we were doing the original pod partnering, that everybody's email was in. So feel free to reach out to other people, in the group if you want to form one large pod and do it weekly, or mix it up. The more that you continue to engage this as a relational practice, the more that's just reinforced. So, yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Really grateful.
Question.
David, go ahead.
So I've been doing the core flow practice every day.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of continuing that because it's really helpful. And do you have any suggestions? Just keep doing it every day.
Yeah, I'll be making a post with this recording for what to do. Yeah, so thank you for that. I'll be making a post for what to do with the practices over the course of the next couple of weeks. I think in the agreement on the way in, I suggested staying with everything for at least 2 weeks after. But yeah, one of the things that I will mention is just reviewing the integration talk and the integration practice we did in the recording today, a week from now.
Awesome. Cool.
There'll probably be a
Thanks.
few other details and goodies in there. Oh, and if anyone who didn't notice it, I redid the flow practices, 2 different versions. There's a shorter one and then a little one that has a little bit more even spacing. So I encourage just moving forward with those rather than continuing with the original. They're a little more streamlined. Yeah. Will I post about phase 2? Yes, I will certainly post about phase 2. I don't have it scheduled yet, but it'll be happening sometime in late October, mid-October, around that time. Yeah. Yeah, and last but not least, if you feel like there's any value here that you would like to see, those in your life benefit from, any referrals are greatly appreciated. And of course, it's like, I'm not asking anyone to proselytize and kind of like get on a soapbox about this work, but really the best thing that I find to speak from when I'm sharing this work with others is how it's benefited me directly. And letting people, if they feel inspired by that, letting that inspiration be what moves them. Yeah, and testimonials, I'll be sending out a little some information on that too. While we're still here, anybody who's willing to do a video testimonial within the next 2 weeks, I offer a $50 credit on the next activation or training. So just as an added incentive, because I know it's easy to just move on to the next thing, but it does seem to benefit when testimonials come through that are still fresh. But I'll have a list of instructions and things like that to make that process really clear and streamlined. Yeah. So before we just peel off here, let's all take a moment and just one last time here, just connecting to who we are in this place. And bringing it back to source, receiving from what's available here now and the pathways that have been cleared. And feeling the, what might have just been a trickle in the beginning, feeling into the channel, the pathway that's been cleared and what's available now that wasn't available in your first session. And just finding whatever gratitude you can for that. Thank you, Source, for this development. Thank you, Source, for this opening. And just being curious if I've grown this much in such a short amount of time, what's possible in twice this time? And letting that curiosity be what moves us from this moment forward here. Allowing that thirst, long desire to be seen, heard, and felt as we make our way from this space to the next one. Deep bow to each of you. Much love. See you soon.